Hey there, this is Natalie, and they were a little later in coming than usual this month, but it seems that the Attack on Titan Chapter 139 leaks have begun. These leaks are from a credible source that has been correct for previous chapters, and they've been posted on readsnk.com, where they only post verified leaks and update them as raw scans become available. At the moment, all we have is the text spoilers, and they are quite vague at this stage, where we also don't yet know the details of a lot of the scenes. So if this all seems vague and underwhelming, don't worry, because the leaks always do at this stage. But we do have answers to some of the biggest questions even now. So let's look at what the leaks say before getting onto the analysis of what this means we know about the final chapter of Attack on Titan so far. So, these are the version of things on readsnk.com, which do reference the source of the leaks as Zeken, who has been a well-known source of accurate leaks in the past. First, they give us this bullet point list type set of spoilers that cover the first half of the chapter. Then there is a more detailed version of the first part, and then a list of points for the second half of the chapter. The basic list for the first half says, Eren pulls Armin into the paths and shows him memories to explain things. They have a fist fight by the water. Armin wins, and they fall down looking at the water and hug before saying goodbye. Armin wakes up and runs over to the crying Mikasa. Pure Titans revert to humans, and everyone is okay. Reiner hugs Karina. Levi sees the dead scouts and Hanji. Jean and Connie see Sasha smiling at them. And Armin dealt with the final problem. Mikasa takes the head and starts heading somewhere. That's where this set of initial leaks ends, but then we get the more fleshed out part for the start of the chapter, as well as what happens next in the less detailed format. So it says, Eren wakes up in the paths and meets Ymir. Ymir and Eren have a debate about whether or not humanity deserves to survive. Eren says that even if the world can be cruel, his friends prove the goodness of humanity in impossible odds, and this enrages Ymir. She wraps him up in chains before striking him with a bolt of lightning. Ymir suddenly collapses, unconscious. Armin enters the paths again and confronts Eren at a riverbank. Armin and Eren have a fist fight, which Armin wins, pushing Eren into the water. Eren tells Armin that the only way to win is to kill him, and hands him a knife. Armin refuses to kill Eren and embraces him instead. Now we return to the more bullet point type format, and it says Eren takes Armin to the paths, seeing previous events and continuing the conversation. Looking at the sea, Armin hits Eren. After the scene changes, Armin hugs Eren and sits down for a final goodbye. So that's various ways of covering that part of the chapter. But then we move to Armin wakes up and sees Mikasa. The Titans have changed back to the way they were, everyone is fine. Levi saw the Commander Hanji and others in the paths. Jean and Connie saw Sasha smiling in the paths. Reiner, mother and son embrace, Armin to deal with the endgame. So this again is sort of hinting that Armin's going to be dealing with something important, probably the centipede creature or worm-coon, however you want to call him. But then we move to the time skip. First it says, a few years later, the Queen celebrated her birthday with the man behind her holding the child. The others also grow up and take a boat far away to Lena. In the distance, adult Gabby and Falco are with the captain in a wheelchair. Birds in the sky fly by, and the people on the boat also see them. Mikasa is under the tree next to a small grave. A bird comes and pecks Mikasa's scarf and flies away on its wings. The translation for that part isn't the clearest, but I think we can get an idea of what we'll be seeing. That's all the detail there is so far. Now, these do seem to answer a number of questions even in this vague state. Firstly, Eren is dead, and we do get his point of view on things in his discussions with Ymir and then Armin, but all of this happens in the paths. Secondly, all the people who were titanized in chapter 138 do revert back to human and survive, so there are no character deaths after Eren. We don't know exactly what happens to Worm-kun, or really with Ymir either. I'm assuming that Worm-kun is the final problem dealt with by Armin, but we'll need to wait for more fleshed out leaks to understand what's happening with a lot of these things. It seems that unless we get anything with Historia in the vaguely described part with memories, we either aren't going to find out for sure who the father of her baby is, or it is the farmer. I'm assuming that's who the man standing behind her as she celebrates her birthday is. This would mean that the baby wasn't an important plot point, but instead just represents the future of Paradis. The other thing this version of the leaks doesn't tell us just yet is about the final panel. If this chapter essentially ends with Mikasa having a quiet moment under the tree, where we can perhaps assume she buried Eren's head, and then a bird representing freedom comes and pecks her scarf, then I'm not sure how that will segue into the final panel with the man and the baby exactly. But the message seems to be that everybody is free, what with all the birds flying around, and so it doesn't seem like the identity of the man and the baby is going to be important to the plot. While we really don't know how a lot of things are going to actually happen yet, or what a lot of the memories and conversations in the first half of the chapter will include, we can definitely already tell that this will be on the happier end of possible endings, and there don't seem to be any last-minute twists regarding Eren or the rumbling. It seems like it will resolve the situation left at the end of chapter 138, and then continue to a time skip that shows the world in a relatively peaceful state. There could be some more complexity once we know the dialogue. For instance, we can probably expect that the scene with the people who had just been titanized, for instance with Reiner and Karina, may include some sense of what the future dynamic between Marleyans and Eldians might be like. I would also think we'll get more of an insight into the situation in Paradis a few years later from that scene of Historia's birthday than just it being the Queen's birthday. I feel like a lot of the sense of what the world's going to be like at the end of this story will come through from those scenes once we get to see them properly. It's really hard to say whether the route to that fairly hopeful ending is going to be satisfying without knowing the details of Armin and Eren's path scenes or what happens with Ymir and the life organism, so I'm not even going to try to say whether this ending is good or rushed or anything like that at all until we have the panels. So make sure you're subscribed if you want to see further coverage of the chapter as the leaks get expanded on, as well as plenty of full analysis on Attack on Titan as a whole once we know the ending in full. But what do you guys think of the spoilers so far? Do you like the prospect of this optimistic ending where most of the Alliance survived, or are you disappointed that there weren't any more major twists? Are you looking forward to seeing what happens in the path scenes with Eren and Armin? Let me know everything you think in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again very soon.